Again, there's a lot of people who like to be early adopters, and in my experience with technology, sometimes, the early bird theory is true, but it's the second mouse that gets the cheese. So sometimes it pays just to hang around and let someone else go before you. Authenticity is pretty important. I think all of you would recognize that. There's no point me having my PA write up Twitter updates. I mean, I'll get caught out, and it would be quite dangerous. Again, old school management, you avoid controlling your players and your staff who are on Twitter by setting up controls. So controls avoids control, and that certainly works for us off the court, and it certainly works for us on court. Really important to link your brand into your Facebook and Twitter names. Obviously, the Phoenix Suns have spoken to us. Jeremy showed us how the Suns brand is used in all their accounts, and we certainly would do the same. And again, this whole concept, I think, as we move forwards, one of our big challenges is to link our CRM into what we call the SCRM, for want of a better term, where we bring in social content and information into our CRM that we already have, because we want to know not just that, for example, all our fans get a birthday card that the head coach and I write and sign and send them. So we know that piece of information about their birthday, but now we send them a birthday wish on Facebook as well, so that it's a little buzz for them to show their friends that the head coach wished them happy birthday. So those types of things where you merge both your online and offline strategies. Real quick in terms of media. Again, this is just my view, so I could be wrong, but it's based on my view of life. We're not the AFL, so when we need media, or when we have a media event, we get obviously all types of radio, TV to show up, and that's typically the model we've been using. That's important, okay, because a broad brush media reporting is important for your brand, even for your non-followers. But when you think about it, your real stakeholders are the ones you need to communicate to, and you can, I'm not saying you eliminate this model, but I think it's important to run in parallel this model where you just use social media and email and things like that to communicate directly with your members, and we certainly do with texting, email and Facebook. This certainly in the last 3 months, when we do have a press conference, we typically text our corporate members, and we certainly put up an update on Twitter and Facebook, and we also send out an email in the morning of a press conference to say, at 11 o'clock today, we'll announce the signing of a player. So that way, look, some of the media channels may not be too psyched about it, but our fans certainly think that they've got this exclusive piece of information. So it certainly works for us. And here are some of the benefits that I think we have from it. Firstly, it's in real time. One of the great things I noticed 2 weeks ago was when we had, Kevin Rudd was deposed. Certainly in Perth, it missed the 6 o'clock news. Channel, in fact, none of the people reported except the ABC, and Channel 10 actually had the report on YouTube rather than on TV. So there is, and in sport, there is a need for real-time reporting, and social media and things like that allow you to do that. It's direct to the fan. And you don't have to sensationalize it, Sometimes you have to blow up a story in order to get media coverage. But you can be more authentic. You can certainly be more frequent. The other big thing for us is not just the frequency of communication, but the quantity of communication. A lot of fans are busy, and so you can just communicate with 140 characters and give them an option to read more about it on a web page later on, and that's been important for us as well. Just want to move on to brand. In the olden days, you used to have sales and marketing people, so the production guys would make a product and the sales and marketing guys used to have to sell it, whatever it was. And then as we grew more and more mature, we realized that, marketing is more about upstream and taking the feedback from the fans and helping build a product that the customer wants. I think that's where we're heading with brand. A brand is no longer what we say our brand is, but it's more what the fan or the customer or the public say your brand is. And social media gives us an opportunity to get real-time feedback on what your brand is. In sport, we have a mission, which is, we exist to inspire and to entertain through excellence. And we push that as a brand. We have a zero tolerance policy in our players. They sign a separate contract to play for the Perth Wildcats that says if you do one of these things on this list, there's no arbitration, you're just out of the club. And they sign that contract as a separate contract. They sign to do an extra 150 hours of community work if they play for the Perth Wildcats than they do for any other club in the NBL. And we do have those types of new rules and different rules for us. And that shows up in our brand. But at the end of the day, your brand is what your fans say you are. And one way of monitoring and measuring the Perth Wildcats brand using Twitter is you just save a search. And so we have someone that has a list of search words that we save. And one of these is just the word Perth Wildcats. And so we have real-time knowledge of what people are saying about us, and we can monitor that. Most of you would use Google Alerts, a great piece of technology to see how often your different players, your head coach, and your brand is mentioned in the news. That's a story of the New South Wales Premier wearing our singlet when we won the championship. She lost a bet, which was, you pick that up through Google. I've been using this website called Backtype. Some of you might know about it. It's another way of measuring your brand. You just put in your domain name and it gives you some real-time stats, and you can plug it against another competing brand like the Melbourne Tigers, for example, in this instance. And that works pretty well too. Most of you would know socialmention.com, which basically, again, analyzes all your brand mentions and sends you an email about it. And it also gives you some pretty interesting stats. Most of you would know about it. If you don't, there it is. This is an example of real-time management of your brand. Don't know if any of you know of Latika Burke. She's a journalist for the Fairfax Network, I believe, based in Canberra. Won the Young Walkley Award 2 weeks ago. She tweets a lot. I follow her. And quite out of character, there was this tweet that says, "Thanks a lot, Virgin Blue, thanks for nothing." And I thought, wow, that's pretty uncharacteristic, quite a few thousand members. Within minutes, Virgin Blue's onto her, and they reply to her and they say, "What's wrong?" And she says, "I'm going to bed now, but I'll speak to you tomorrow." To all those 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 followers of Latika Burke, the brand credibility is back because they've acted straight away on it. And we certainly try to do that at the Perth Wildcats. Offline we do it, where if there's any complaint that comes through, we make sure that we don't go home that day until we ring the particular fan and speak to them. Mind you, we can. We wouldn't be able to do it if we were an AFL club because we're a lot smaller. But you can do it online as well. And I think, certainly my view is you've got to invest a resource into that. Finally, we use social media for managing our personnel. It gives me a great idea of my staff and the whole person and how they're engaging at work and their needs off work. I was overseas on a holiday and I noticed one of my staff says that, I've got the worst headache in the world and, the phones are ringing twice as loud to me. I can't stand it. And I jumped on the phone and rang back the office and said, "You know what, go home. You shouldn't be at work if you've got a headache. It's fine, go home." So having a perspective on your staff is an advantage, and I think it's important in terms of work-life balance. And the other thing I do is I stay close to a lot of our players in the NBL, mainly because we hire for character first. And the more I know about a player and what he does on the weekends and what he stands for in terms of values, the better about understanding I have of the player when it comes to recruiting. So those are the 4 key areas I wanted to share with you about, and hopefully they make sense.